It is August 22nd, 2023. We're here on the rooftop of the property located at 8758 Crockett Street in La Mesa, California, 91942. So you can see we're here on the rooftop. Going to enter the main sewer line with a camera to inspect it. We're on the left side of the house here. We have the bathroom with the bathtub. We're going to go through this original 3-inch cast iron vent, which will lead directly into the beginning of the sewer line. We do have another toilet at the back end of the house, a little bit farther towards the middle. We'll start with this part of the system. So you can see right here, this is where the toilet empties into the system right here in the bottom of the screen. And then here's where the line is making its transition from the vertical into the horizontal sewer right here. So we're going to push our camera in. We got a little bit of debris on the lens, so we're going to pause for 1 second so we can run some water by that and clean that up. Okay, so flush the toilet there to clean off the lens a little bit. So you can see we're now inside the original cast iron pipe. We have a little turn on the line right here at this T-junction. You can see we have some heavy channeling or buildup and scale on the bottom of the pipe on the left and right hand sides there. So some heavy mounds right there, all built up on there. So obviously indicative of original cast iron pipe. Also can be due to the fact that it's starting to flake and peel and swell the cast iron steel, besides the debris that builds up in there. So all that heavy mounding creates a damming effect where it holds water that doesn't let it drain out of the system, which can of course further deteriorate the pipe, but also cause things to get snagged or held up on both the deposits or the water that doesn't completely drain out of the system sometimes. So it doesn't mean you're going to have stoppages, but you're certainly a lot more likely to when you have an area like this that the water's not draining out of. So you can see this is what we call a sag to the line. Not really because of poor slope, but because of all this bailed up and scale and deposits that are now forming on the inside walls of the pipe there. So there's a crawl space to the house, so sometimes you can obviously do one of two things. If this becomes a problem, you can hydrojet the line, which we don't have cleanouts at the ground level, so it all has to be done from the rooftop. So not as efficient, not as easy, but otherwise you just replace the pipe over time if there's multiple issues with that. I don't know what the outside walls of the pipe look like, if there's any swelling or cracking or any other moisture that looks like it's trying to get through at any point. A lot of times the bottom of the pipe, you're not going to see some of it because it's embedded in the dirt. But we'll continue down the line, see if there's any other issues. Looks like we've got a bunch of cobwebs there and little spiders. So again, just a lot of buildup and scale in the line here, and holding these little pockets and pools of water throughout here. So there's going to be little undulations. Some of that might get on our camera lens and might inhibit the view from time to time, but should open up. So you can see the inside just has these really heavy mounds that we're hitting right here, blocking the path of debris that's trying to get out. Doesn't mean it's not functional, but again, depending on how much goes down and through, there may be issues with clogs periodically. So you can see right there on the right hand side that white paper debris that's snagged and hung up on the system because of that scale and buildup of deposits. So depending on the condition of the pipe and the crawl space on the outside, what it looks like, this would be a line that definitely we would recommend getting this hydrojetted to scrape this free and clear, because it's just so heavy and so thick and such long areas throughout the pipe here. Normally they like to go from more towards the end of the line and then push in, because the way the sprayer hoses and jetters, they can actually drag that debris, because again, all these things that you're scraping, sometimes even pieces or chunks of the metal pipe that can flake off, have to be removed from the system. And the way the hydrojetter works is a lot more trailing jets that usually push, and when you're trying to move heavy debris, it can be done faster, more efficiently when you're actually push in from the end of the line back in and then drag it back out with those jets. So unless we find some clean outs that were installed and just got buried up that we didn't notice when we walked the property, we don't have an access point to do that. So a hydrojetter would have to try to go from the rooftop here, which is going to take a lot more time. So you can see that huge bulbous material right there, all scaled up in the walls of the pipe there. Just heavy mounding everywhere, all this channeling we call. More of it here, trying to get over that, so even the camera's hitting this lip of this heavy buildup. There we go, we have to get some force to jump over that. So, alright, here we go. This is what we wanted to see. We do have an ABS junction right here, so it looks like some clean outs may have been installed. We didn't notice them on the property, but they might have been slightly covered up. So here we have our ABS cleanouts. So this would be, again, unless the pipe has a lot of defects or some problems, it's got some fissures, cracks, or some really bad spots under the house, and you're going to want to replace it. Otherwise, we'll see where this cleanout is at, and this is where the hydrojetter could start from to clean all that stuff that we passed from the beginning of this line to this point. So trying to look and see if we see vertical T's there. Should be two. We're not allowed to use a two-way clean out in California. It should be a double sweep with two T's crisscrossing each other. Can't really see with the little bit of pocket of water that's being held here. So we're transitioning right back into cast iron, and the little lip and then any buildup on the cast iron is acting like a little miniature dam. That's what's holding some of that water in the bottom of the pipe. So we're just going to continue down the line for a minute here before we go locate that. So there's some more cobwebs here. Those are not roots. So same thing, a little bit of scale and buildup here. Deposits formed on the bottom. A little bit more circular right through here, not as much. Looking slightly better than the stuff that was under the house up to those cleanouts. Now here we have a root intrusion in the line. So we have a little bit of cobwebs there, but those are actually roots. So we do have a crack or a break in the cast iron pipe, or the cast iron has a hub where two pieces of pipe come together and that hub has become compromised. So either way, it's an issue. So you can see all these roots in here, kind of blocked up the view of our lens a little bit. So what we're going to go ahead and do is pull back to this ball of roots right here that's intruded in the system. It's about 10 to 12 feet past those cleanouts. So what we're going to do is leave our camera right here at these roots. We're going to pause the video to go and see where this is at on the property so we can mark it, and then look for those cleanouts as well. Okay, we flushed the toilet again because we're just getting some debris on the camera lens. It's kind of inhibiting a nice crystal clear view. Keep hitting some buildup and gunk in the pipe. But anyway, we've located these roots. They're, when you're standing on the sidewalk, they're on the far left side of the house is where the sewer line runs. And it's just next to the bushes that separate this and the neighboring property, 54. So the pipe is about 3 feet deep to the top of the pipe approximately. And a few feet ahead, we could actually see there's a cement box with the property line cleanouts. Original cast iron, don't know if it's going to be accessible. Looks like those are just some cobwebs there. Again, apologize, there's just so much gunk in the pipe. It's really, and these cobwebs is blocking the view from being like crystal clear here. Let's see if we can Get this rubbed and cleaned off our camera lens. There we go. So that's the turn we just made at the property line. So I think the house is staged and vacant, so it might be vacant. That's why there's so many spiders in the line. They're not getting a lot of things rolling by there to not want them to live there. It's a little unusual to have this much, such a multitude of them. They're still on the lens here. So let's see if we can push by this property clean out here, the sidewalk's edge. Okay, so we've made that turn, and so now typically the pipe is going to transition into clay pipe, 4-inch clay. So we want to check all the hubs on the clay, which are very short distances of pipe. A lot of cobwebs still, but not noticing any roots in the junction so far. A little bit of standing water in the bottom of the pipe, so we're losing our view as we push forward on occasion here. All right, there's a big root intrusion right there, you can see in the clay pipe. So this will need to be cleaned up and maintained. It is the homeowner's responsibility in the city of La Mesa for your line all the way out into the street. The city does not do repairs or maintenance on these lines. So, but this is clay pipe. It's never going to typically crack or deteriorate to the point that it has to be relined or replaced. The roots can just be cleaned up. We use a chain knocker system. It's a little bit cheaper than hydrojetting, and then you can use a foaming chemical treatment to keep them at bay. So there's those big roots right there. We'll locate that. It should be in the street or close to it. See if we can get the rest of the way out here. We may have to run some water here. Looks like some very small, tiny ones possibly getting in the right and left side of that hub, but very, very minimal. Okay, we're having a little bit of difficulty trying to get out past this 90-foot mark, so we're going to pause the video and run some water, which can reduce the friction and help move this cable and camera head out further to get out to the end of the line. Okay, we've got water running through all the fixtures, as you can see here, so now we can definitely get the camera to move. And there we go. We're actually going down the vertical into the street, so it looks like we weren't too far away from dumping into the large city line, which we may have just entered right here. So I believe just over barely 100 feet from this this sewer vent, where it looks like we're in the city right here. So we're going to go ahead now and shut all the water off and pull back to look at all the junctions to verify if there's any issues. Okay, so we've shut the water off. It might take a minute or so to go ahead and get all the residual that was running by the faucets we turned off. But again, we feel right now we're in the city line, so that's why there's all this water cascading by the lens. It's from the upstream properties that are dumping through the system. So we're going to start pulling back right now. Oh, there's a huge intrusion right here of roots growing right before it dumps into the city. So you can see at the very bottom of the screen where we were at, this is the city line right here where it dumps in. And as we back up, that is just a huge train of roots growing along this vertical pipe. So we're hanging down. It may or may not show up on the video, but we're hanging down at about minus 76 degrees. Our camera is a special one, has a tilt meter built in to show the angle or pitch it's sitting in. So we're going to come back up this huge vertical pipe. You can see all these really heavy roots all bound up in there. So we're still on this vertical run here, pulling up, and there's the transition right here. So you can see all the roots growing in from this hub right here. A little bit of water still running by. So we're still hanging down, but that's that hub right there where they're growing in from and then growing down the line. So that needs to be cleaned up. That's in the street. It's still the homeowner's responsibility. Coming back up this long vertical, you can see we're just dangling there. Now we've made the transition into the horizontal pipe here, and so check the rest of these junctions out. So that was one I think we noticed, the real tiny ones on the left and right hand side. Very minuscule at this point, but there is some intrusion coming from that line, so it just needs to be maintained and not grown in real heavy yet. Here's our roots right here we're coming up on. You can see them growing along the edges here. So this is the one intrusion that's on the horizontal line. So we're going to go ahead and pause for a second just so we can locate to see where this is at on the property. Okay, we've located this intrusion here, which is the second to last officially. I mean, the other one was real tiny, but this one has some substance to it. It needs to be cleaned up immediately. This is 6 feet into the street. The pipe is about 4 feet deep. So now we're going to back up, see if we have any other intrusions that need to be cleaned up. Maybe some little tiny roots on the upper right of that coupling possibly. Kind of hard to see in our monitor out here in the sunlight, but very minuscule though if there is any. So just like that other one, nothing to be worried about right now. We just need to be maintained. So go back to the next coupling. So clay and concrete only comes in maximum 4 feet lengths. So that's why there's going to be so many more couplings. So we can see some real tiny roots on this coupling on the right hand side, very tiny, but now we've got some growing on the bottom of the pipe as we back up here. So here's some heavy roots right here. So you can see these are quite thick right here. These need to be cleaned up immediately. These are quite heavy right here. So it appears this is possibly hub right there. I can see a coupling right there, the line. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video to see where this is at, if it's actually on the property or before the sidewalk or just after the sidewalk probably. Okay, so this is just under the bushes in front of the sidewalk, so basically just on the property. And so it's hard to get an exact depth reading, but again, the first root intrusion that we marked on the front rocky area under the left side of the house by the bushes was about 3 feet. We know we were closer to 4 feet in the street, so this is about 3.5 feet approximately. So again, this is still in the clay pipe. It's right after the transition to cast, so this can be maintained and cleaned up. It's not a concern as much because it's still going to have to be done annually with a treatment and then hopefully cleaned every couple years, but it's when you get into the cast iron that you're more worried because that means it's cracked and broken. The clay, they're growing in from the hubs. So right now you can see we're hanging vertically up again. I know the lens is a little clogged up from the debris, but we just made that transition from the horizontal clay. We're now coming back up through that transition of that clean out, and there's a concrete box on the other side of the bush in the front lawn that has an access point for the clean out. So again, our lens is kind of all got cobwebs and debris on there, so kind of hard to see everything, but there's some roots on the right hand side I think here. Let me pull back a little bit. No, those are cobwebs. So let me see if we can scrape this debris off our camera again. So coming back up, here's that transition. So there's the opening on the very top of the screen. That's the clean out Y junction that was used for the clean out. So when you're in that front left corner of the property, other side of the bushes by the synthetic grass, where there's a rock bed, there's a concrete box lid, and that's the access to the original property line clean out. So it is exposed. We're going to back up on the system here through all these cobwebs. Push forward here. Making sure all those little stringy things are still cobwebs and not roots. So there's the roots that we did have here that we marked with the green flag and that rock bed along the bushes on the left side of the property. So we've got this marked. Now as we come back here, we got to back up about a little under 10 feet from that root intrusion there, and we had that ABS junction, which appears to be a clean out, but again on the property there's just rocks and bricks. There's no access to it, so we're not sure what happened there, but this might have just been a repair. It may have not been a clean out installation, but it would be surprising if it wasn't. So it's very hard to tell with the camera lens here in the sunlight. It appears that this has a T-junction in it, but I can't see if it's vertically on the top or the sides. There's some hubs there, so it seems like it has to be a clean out or a T-junction. We're going to go ahead and put our camera right in here and go ahead and locate to see if it is under some bricks or rocks that can be exposed, to try to see the top of this if there's an access point. Okay, so this plastic pipe here is directly under where we're sitting with the camera, under the paving stones, right next to the large beach pebble rocks before you get to the synthetic grass in the front yard. We moved a bunch of the large pebble rocks around out of the way in case it was a little bit past, but right here where the camera is sitting, it is under the paving stone. The paving stone's not loose, doesn't have a cutout for a clean out, so again, kind of hard to see if the T-junction is on the top of the pipe. I believe there is one there, a clean out right there, vertically on the top. When it's looked at our home computer, it might be a little bit more visible if that's an opening on the top. But anyway, it's buried, so I would assume it's really close to that material that was put down. Why it was buried, maybe they didn't know it was there, I'm not really sure. So anyway, I'm assuming it was installed because there was either a repair that had to be done here, or they were having so many stoppages they decided to dig up this area to go ahead and put in the clean out. It's impossible to say, but we had that root intrusion after this, so maybe they had some heavy roots here and did a repair at one point in time. So we know that the cast iron has got a failure point in between this plastic and the clean out box and that cast iron. So again, we have that marked with the green flag in the front yard. We're now going to go ahead and pull back on the system here. And again, here's where all that really heavy mounding and channeling and buildup is in the pipes. So if that is a clean out, in fact, again, then the hydrojetter can use that to go ahead and clean up all of this mounding and debris that's in the system here, especially for the portion of the pipe, if you're not going to reline it or replace it ever from that plastic we come back until you get into the crawl space, and that's what you do that for. Now again, we've got to go check the piping in the crawl space to verify that there's not anything seriously wrong with the outside of the pipe that's looking so bad that hydrojetting is going to blow through or make it worse, or it's already so deteriorated from the outside edges that it's better to do a replacement. So again, just going to pass through all this to show you all that heavy scale and buildup that's in the system here. Doesn't mean it's not functional, but again, not great for the passage of debris trying to flow through the system over time, and it's only going to get worse. Real heavy right there, you can see. Now, we're going to go ahead and pause now here and stop pulling back here a few more feet. Make sure that's just mounding and not roots. Yeah, it looks like it's just some more mounding. So we're going to pause here because we do have the other powder bathroom in the back. We're going to leave this camera and push rod in the system right here, and we're going to put a second camera down through the line to show where they intersect. Okay, so we're now here with our second camera. You can see there's our other camera sitting in through the vent there on the full bath. We're over here on the edge. There's the addition that was added. So here's our 2-inch vent. This is only a 2-inch. Let's see if we got some bugs or cobwebs here. We're going to push through this, and then we'll clean this off and then come back through. A little bit of flaking in the line. Looks like we got that debris off by just running through. So this toilet here, here's the sewer main for this bathroom, just off the kitchen. So again, there's also some channeling, scale, and buildup on the bottom, left and right hand sides of the pipe here as well. So a little bit of standing water that's gotten dammed up from that buildup that's not draining out. There's a mound of debris right there we're trying to get over. Still more water hanging out, so we're kind of losing our image right here. You can see we're just underwater. Okay, here's a little turn on the line. This is now going to essentially head over towards the other sewer line that our other pipe camera is in. So, same thing. Pipe has that scale and build up in it. Some heavy stuff there. Real heavy right here. So, pipe is not in great condition. Again, the more you have to snake a line or hydrojet it, that's going to damage the pipe. Old steel pipe that's rusting, flaking, and swelling, it's going to crack it, make it fall apart even more, or even bust it all the way through, depending on how aggressive you have to be to clean this out. So if there's anything on the pipe that shows some bad signs from the outside already, then the hydrojetting may not take, but it's obviously cheaper than replacing all the pipes to start if you're able to do that or willing to. Rounder and cleaner right through here, you can see. And then here's our transition into the other portion where they become a shared pipe. So we've seen all this already. So you can see from the vertical vent right here, it's usually about 15 feet down. We're about 30 feet out before it ties into the other line. But if you're snaking the line from here, you can see you're going to have to go about 46 feet before this toilet ties into the other sewer main, or you could clean it up from that other vent and then farther out. So again, if that other plastic clean out is an access point, you may be able to travel in reverse from the ground level to all the way both of these lines, but it's not a guarantee. So anyway, this line is open, but only part that's nice and clear and circular and open is right here. That's what we want to see when we're looking at cast iron, no matter how old it is. But as we back up here, we start to get into all this buildup, as you can see right here. So just 6 feet back from there approximately, now it starts to get that heavy scale buildup, deposits, and channeling all along the bottom from the pipe swelling and just corroding. So real heavy through all this. So we've got the line scoped out. We're going to go ahead and pause the video. We're going to go ahead and see if there's any way we can get our small camera through the laundry, which I believe is in the garage. We don't typically go through the kitchen because there's not a clean out for the kitchen, and it has to go around the window framing that's there, so the line zigzag is just not going to land up making that way. But if the laundry has a vent and it's in the garage, then we'll try to go ahead and at least try to inspect that 2-inch pipe, but the kitchen pipe's not going to be inspected. Now, the water's draining through the kitchen because I'm sure the home inspector ran it, we just ran it, so it's functional. Of course, it just might need to be snaked and cleaned up on occasion, but we'll go ahead and pause the video and see if we can somehow get through the laundry just to verify that part of the system. Okay, so we're over the garage here, the property. This is the vent for the laundry. Again, it's a smaller drain pipe, so it's not always a guarantee that the cameras will get through there, but we'll at least take a look and give an attempt here. This is the same camera, 1-inch camera that we used to get through the sewer. looks like this is newer plastic right here to start. Yeah, that's newer plastic line right there. So we've got a sanitary tee on its back. That's not permitted. So when you transition from vertical to horizontal, you have to use a long sweep 90. So that tee that uses that is called a combo fitting. It's not called, you can't use a sanitary tee, and that's what they used here. So that makes it very complicated for cameras especially, but also even for drain pipe cables to steer in the proper direction. So it's possible that that plastic junction we saw in the corner, maybe that is a new 2-inch line that's teeing into the main, because maybe this laundry went bad and they rerouted or redid something with it. So yeah, this camera is not going to make that turn. We do have one smaller camera that has a little bit less of a stiff push rod, so we'll go ahead and give that one try. So we're going to go ahead and pause and try one more camera real quick. Okay, so we're going to try with one more camera here. Another 1-inch camera, but much smaller, less stiff push rod. So we don't have access into the garage. I didn't see a door from the house to enter that, but my guess is if this was all replaced with plastic, then there's probably some saw cut lines in the garage showing this being rerouted and redone. Here's that hard turn. It does appear that it might be horizontal. But same thing, you can't go from this horizontal to another with a sanitary tee. You have to use a combo fitting. The only time you can use a sanitary tee is when the tee is vertical itself, and what it's picking up is a horizontal line from like under a sink, but not underground on the side or upside down. Yeah, see, the camera is just getting to this tee and it's hitting it straight on because there's no turn or sweep to this transition, and that's required, so you essentially can land up going both directions. So we'll see if we can get into the garage. I believe the real estate agent is here, so we probably have access to try to get in. So we would see those saw cut lines if this is in fact, as it appears to be all newer plastic pipe here. So this may have just all been rerouted because it had gone bad, and they did that rather than go back into the crawl space to let it dump in, I guess. So we're going to go ahead and pause and go ahead and see if we can get access. Okay, so we were able to get in the garage, and there's no saw cut lines. What they did was the galvanized or cast iron vent pipe was outside the wall in the garage, it appears always, I'm assuming, because there's original flashing here, and they replaced it with plastic, so it's actually outside the wall, and then they have it 9'ing and branching off to the utility sink, and then turning again right here to then go and into the crawl space where it does dump into the original portion of the system. So that plastic pipe that we found again by the corner of the front lawn that has the buried T-junction possibly has nothing to do with this. This is all exposed in the garage, so there's nothing basically from here that we need to look at. This has been replaced with plastic to this point, but then goes in the crawl space. So we're going to go ahead and check the plumbing in the crawl space based off the home inspections report if there was any issues with the piping underneath the house, since we have so much issues with the internal portion of the cast iron on this system, to see if it's going to dictate possibly replacement sooner than later. So that concludes this recording for this property.